Introduction. London stands as one of the world's most expensive cities, a distinction it has held for decades. Despite economic downturns, political upheaval, and global crises, the cost of living in the British capital continues to climb. Housing prices remain stubbornly high, transport costs increase year after year, and everyday expenses consistently outpace inflation. For millions of residents and aspiring Londoners, the question persists: why does London never get cheaper? The answer lies not in a single factor, but in a complex web of economic forces, historical decisions, and structural realities that have shaped the city over centuries. Understanding why London remains expensive requires examining the interplay between supply and demand, the role of foreign capital, the constraints of geography and infrastructure, and the policies that govern one of the world's most important financial centers. This is not a story of simple greed or market failure. It is a story of how a city became a victim of its own success, trapped in a cycle where prosperity breeds scarcity and scarcity drives prices ever higher. The historical foundation. To understand London's current predicament, one must first look backward. The city's expensive nature is not a recent phenomenon, but the culmination of centuries of development, planning decisions, and economic evolution. London's transformation into a global metropolis began in earnest during the Industrial Revolution. As Britain's empire expanded, the capital became the nerve center of global trade and finance. Wealth flowed into the city, and with it came people seeking opportunity. By the 19th century, London was the largest city in the world, a sprawling urban landscape that stretched far beyond its medieval boundaries. This rapid growth created immediate challenges. Housing was built quickly and often poorly to accommodate the influx of workers. Slums proliferated in the East End while grand townhouses rose in the West. The city developed a stark geography of wealth and poverty that persists in modified form today. The 20th century brought both destruction and renewal. The Blitz devastated large swaths of London, destroying homes and infrastructure. Post-war reconstruction offered an opportunity to reimagine the city, but the approach taken would have lasting consequences. The Green Belt policy, introduced in 1947, placed strict limits on urban sprawl, preserving countryside around London, but constraining the city's ability to expand outward. Simultaneously, the decline of British manufacturing and the rise of the service economy transformed London's economic base. The city shed its industrial character and embraced finance, media, technology, and professional services. This shift attracted a new class of highly paid workers, fundamentally altering the demand for housing and amenities. By the late 20th century, London had emerged as a global city, competing not with Birmingham or Manchester, but with New York, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. This elevated status brought prestige and wealth, but also set in motion the forces that would make the city increasingly unaffordable for ordinary residents. The real estate paradox. At the heart of London's cost crisis lies real estate. Property prices in the capital have risen far faster than incomes, creating a widening gap between what people earn and what they must pay to live in the city. Several factors drive this phenomenon. First, London operates under severe supply constraints. The Green Belt restricts outward expansion, while planning regulations limit density in many established neighborhoods. The result is a chronic shortage of housing relative to demand. When supply cannot keep pace with demand, prices rise inexorably. Second, London property has become an asset class unto itself, valued not merely as shelter, but as investment. Domestic and international buyers purchase London real estate as a store of value, a hedge against inflation, and a source of rental income. This financialization of housing means that property prices reflect not just local demand for places to live, but global demand for secure assets. Third, the structure of the housing market favors existing owners over new entrants. Those who purchased property decades ago have seen enormous gains in wealth, while those entering the market today face prices that are multiples of average incomes. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. As prices rise, those with property wealth can leverage it to acquire more, while those without struggle to gain a foothold. The rental market mirrors these dynamics. With home ownership out of reach for many, demand for rental properties remains high. Landlords facing their own high acquisition costs pass these expenses to tenants. Rental yields in London are relatively low compared to property values, yet rents themselves are high in absolute terms, reflecting the underlying cost of the asset. Planning regulations, while intended to preserve neighborhood character and prevent overdevelopment, also contribute to scarcity. Obtaining permission to build new housing or convert existing structures is often a lengthy and uncertain process. Developers face numerous hurdles, from local opposition to infrastructure requirements to affordable housing mandates. These barriers, while individually justifiable, collectively constrain supply and add costs that are ultimately reflected in prices. The foreign investment factor. London's property market is not merely local or even national, it is thoroughly global. Foreign investment plays a significant role in driving prices, particularly at the upper end of the market. For international buyers, London offers several attractions. It is politically stable, with strong property rights and a transparent legal system. It is a global financial center with excellent connectivity to other major cities. English is the dominant language, and the city offers world-class education, healthcare, and cultural amenities. For wealthy individuals from countries with less stable political or economic environments, London property represents security. This demand from overseas buyers adds a layer of competition that domestic buyers cannot match. When a London apartment competes with properties in other global cities for the attention of international capital, local incomes become less relevant to price determination. A flat in Mayfair or Kensington is priced not against what a London teacher or nurse can afford, but against what a global investor is willing to pay. The impact extends beyond the luxury market. As high-end properties are absorbed by international buyers, domestic buyers with substantial means are pushed into the next tier down. This displacement ripples through the market, affecting prices at every level. The phenomenon is sometimes called trickle-down unaffordability. Government policies have attempted to address this issue with limited success. Stamp duty surcharges for foreign buyers and additional taxes on second homes have been introduced, but these measures have not fundamentally altered the dynamics. London remains attractive to global capital, and as long as that remains true, foreign investment will continue to influence prices. Moreover, foreign investment is not limited to residential property. Commercial real estate, from office towers to retail spaces, also attracts international capital. This investment can drive up land values across the board, as sites are valued for their highest and best use, which often means commercial rather than residential development. Infrastructure and the cost of density. London's infrastructure is both an asset and a burden. The city's transport network, utilities, and public services enable it to function as a dense urban center, but maintaining and expanding this infrastructure is extraordinarily expensive. The London Underground, one of the world's oldest metro systems, requires constant investment to remain operational. Tunnels and stations built in the Victorian era must be upgraded to meet modern safety standards and capacity demands. New lines, such as the Elizabeth Line, cost billions and take decades to complete. These costs are ultimately borne by users through fares and by taxpayers through subsidies. The same is true for other infrastructure. Water and sewage systems, some dating back centuries, must be maintained and expanded. The electricity grid must be upgraded to meet growing demand and support the transition to electric vehicles. Roads must be maintained despite heavy use and limited space for expansion. Density itself imposes costs. In a sprawling city, infrastructure can be built incrementally as development spreads. In a constrained city like London, every project must navigate a complex web of existing structures, utilities, and property rights. Digging a new tunnel means working around existing tunnels, foundations, and underground rivers. Building a new development means negotiating with multiple landowners and satisfying numerous regulatory requirements. These infrastructure costs feed into the overall cost of living. Transport fares in London are among the highest in the world, reflecting both the cost of maintaining the system and the lack of alternatives. Energy costs are elevated by the expense of delivering power to dense urban areas. Even basic services, like waste collection, are more expensive in a city where access is difficult and volumes are high. The infrastructure challenge also limits the city's ability to accommodate growth. Without sufficient transport capacity, new housing developments in outer areas become less viable as residents cannot easily commute to employment centers. Without adequate schools, healthcare facilities, and public spaces, new neighborhoods struggle to attract residents. The need to provide infrastructure alongside housing adds cost and complexity to every development project. Government policy and planning. Government decisions at both the local and national level have profound effects on London's cost structure. Policies intended to address affordability often have unintended consequences, while political constraints limit the scope of possible interventions.